stated of the deja vu state. That one I did used to have it, but nowadays it's whereby when it happens, it takes a long time before any seizure happens, to the point whereby it just if it pops up, I don't think too much into it about it. Yeah.
And Sylvester is mentioning that when he is experiencing that and someone is nearby, that you could tell them to take some precautions. What are these precautions? What can be done to prevent the seizure?
Okay, in most cases there's nothing that you can do to prevent the seizure. You just have to let it go. So all what you need is to have the light environment, and the light environment is to make sure, let's assume that the aura and the seizure have got a possibly a gap or possibly a minute, 2 or 5 minutes or whatever. Then you make sure that the place where the person is very safe. There is no risk to injuries, so you remove the furnitures, you make the place just good for them. And also, if you let them rest in a place where they are not likely to harm themselves, you look at the presentation of the person's seizures. In most cases, the seizures are stereotyped. You know, you have the same seizure all the time, so you know what's going to happen. Unless someone has got other factors that are triggering, or they have mixed epilepsies. So in that case, so that's what happens. So you make sure that the place is safe, and you wait for that moment. If it comes, and you have to accept it. And for somebody who has lived with it, sometimes they are being able to cope and live with it. They still go on with their normal activities. If they are watching TV, they still continue to watch TV. If they are eating, they will continue to eat. And then, so once it happens, that is where now you take over as whoever is the person who is with them. Yeah.
And on average, how long should a seizure last, such that if maybe we are working with Sylvester and Sylvester is experiencing a seizure, how much is out of hand?
Okay. So there are seizures that are more serious. If one has got what we call a big seizure, the big seizure is where we have someone who falls on the ground, they are stiff, they fall on the floor, and then they start to jerk. So that jerking is very tiring. So that should not go on for a very long time. There are those who have got the very simple seizures, like what we'd call like his auras of burning metal. So it is still a seizure, but that does not have any serious effects on him. So with that, even if it is a prolonged one, it's not a problem. But for a big seizure, that is what we the one we call tonic-clonic seizures. So in that case, that seizure in most cases lasts between 30 seconds and about 2 minutes. If it goes on beyond 5 minutes, it becomes a medical emergency.
Thank you so much for that. That could go a long way when it comes to first aid and things like that. So thank you so much for that information. Now, let's talk about diagnosis. You mentioned that one could have one seizure, and that does not exactly mean that they are epileptic. So what does diagnosis entail? By the time Sylvester has been told that you are epileptic, what has been taken into consideration?
Okay. I think what is important to know about epilepsy, it is an electrical problem, and it is also a clinical problem. Electrical problems means that what is happening in the brain, and that is when we can say that somebody has got epilepsy. But what is happening in the brain we cannot see with our naked eyes. So that is manifested by the symptoms, what we call now a seizure. So with that bit, then you need people who are good in diagnosing epilepsy. The first thing that is important, it is an account of the event, because seizures are very unpredictable, so they can happen anytime. So you cannot wait and say today is going to be the day, so you're going to someone. But it is important, if there is a witness to the seizures, That is very important, because the person will be able to say the journey of the seizure, how it started, if there was something as a warning, what did they observe in the person, and what happened, how did it progress, because it can progress. So in that case, you'll be able to make up your mind if you have got a very good clinical information about it. So this is important. You cannot just take history from the person who suffers from epilepsy, because they have got very scanty information about it. In most cases, it's what other people tell them. And because people want to be, they don't want to hurt you, so they don't tell you the finer details of it. So the nitty-gritty of it, they don't. So it is important, if you have somebody who sees you have the seizure, and that information should be given to somebody who, in most cases, has got an expert in epilepsy, and that should be possibly be a neurologist in most of those seizures, so that the person, the clinician, will be able to help you to make a diagnosis. It is also critical for one to do a test, and the gold standard test for epilepsy is an EEG. An EEG is called electroencephalography, where you attach electrodes on the head and you do a test. Even it's a standard one, it only goes for about 30 minutes, which sometimes is not the most ideal one. You can have a prolonged one. So for you to be able to make a diagnosis, number one is to have a good clinical information about it, with a credible witness, and much more important, if there is a video of the event. Somebody who's got an expert eye on epilepsy, if you have a video clip of it, you look at it, you'll be able to completely say that this is epilepsy. So that is important. For someone like Sylvester, who has had a trauma, then investigations are important in terms of imaging. So that is an MRI scan. It is important, so that you'll be able to see the area that is involved. So in that case, you'll be able to say, okay, you have a clinical picture here of what happens, and the images that are showing on the MRI scan shows an abnormality in this area, and that then agrees with the symptoms that the person is having. So it is important to diagnose, but it's possible for it not to be diagnosed by somebody who possibly may not have complete expertise in it, but it is always advisable for in the course of time to look for an expert, so that for a second opinion.
Thank you so much for that. And one thing about epilepsy, like you're saying, that a patient could have very scanty information. They will rely on the people that saw them, telling them this is what happened during the seizure. And it's fair to say that this could sort of trigger other mental health problems and issues. And maybe Sylvester, you can tell us, do you feel like epilepsy has in any way resulted to you struggling with other conditions, other mental health conditions, or issues such as maybe depression, anxiety, or how has epilepsy influenced your life? How has your life been living with epilepsy for the last 30 years?
So for me, I would say epilepsy has actually influenced my life in different stages, because as a child, knowing that I had epilepsy, there were those scenarios whereby you'd have isolation from some people. They would look at you differently because you have a condition that is, at the time, it used to be looked at as a as a form of how do you call it, a traditional form of mentality of stating that it feels like a curse of some sort. But the good thing was I had caring parents. I had caring family who actually didn't look at me differently. And as I grew, other elements started to change in terms of how I looked at the world, and at the same time how the world would look at me in the process. Because when a seizure would happen, there's how you'd have people judge you based on that. There's how people would actually approach you based on that. And in the process of that, also there are activities I couldn't do because of having epilepsy at the time. But it didn't limit me from doing what I wanted to do personally. And as I grew from primary school to high school, in high school not much had happened. The medication that I was taking had taken good care of me at the time, and the environment that I was in was actually pretty good in terms of maintaining how many episodes I would have in a duration. As I went to college, in university, things changed a bit because now you're in a different environment where you have different people. You will obviously meet different opinions there. The department that I was studying in, luckily enough, had classmates who didn't look at me differently. But obviously some other elements started popping up because I was introverted and I didn't like to socialize with people that much because there's this feeling of I have something that not many people have, and it doesn't feel right being around them because I don't know what they'll think about me if I approach them. So in the process of that, I would isolate myself, which kind of led to some form of depression, whereby I would even stay in the basketball court and sing alone. The depression was kind of part of also a trigger of that. Some seizures I would get out of having severe depression. But also, as I grew out of that, it also resulted to some points of life whereby I would make bad choices. And by that I mean now I'm speaking openly from my experience, whereby I at one point was getting fed up with taking medication. I wanted to feel free like everyone else. And so I decided to think, yeah, I'm cured, I'm okay, I'm doing good. And I stopped taking that medication. And funny enough, I went for 1 year without having any seizures. But the aftermath of that, of not taking the medication, the aftermath of that was now having like really severe seizures afterwards, which resulted to me being taken to hospital. And as the doctor has stated, they had to even take an EEG for that to see what was wrong. And the effect of that has led me to slowly accept myself. Whatever I have it's not going to leave me, but I have to accept myself. I had to accept myself at that time, whereby I was like, yes, I'll continue taking the medication. Yes, I'll have to accept who I am. Yes, I'll have to be better as I keep growing, and I'll have to pinpoint every pattern that pops up that I know will trigger that. And in the process of accepting myself, I ended up making better people, meeting better people in the process who actually understood what I had and didn't look at me differently.
Thank you so much for that. And as a community, we have the role of being accommodative, sensitive, and understanding that this is a condition. This is a condition, a disease like any other. And so maybe we should drop the traditional thoughts and myths and misconceptions that we have. Now we want to go to for a short break, but before we go, maybe let's talk about triggers. What would trigger an episode? And then maybe later we'll talk to the society.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Moby. So, as Sylvester said, stress is a very big trigger of seizures. And of course, when you're stressed, the capacity of every part of you goes down, and that becomes a trigger. So the other one is sleep deprivation, and that is a big trigger. For somebody not sleeping adequate, that becomes a problem. And in actual sense, when you are making a diagnosis and we decide to do an EEG, we try to sleep deprive the person so that you push the brain to that extent that they may not necessarily have a clinical seizure, but you are pushing to see the electrical activity becoming abnormal, and that happens. So it is another trigger. Another trigger for some people is flashing light. So, but that is for a certain type of epilepsy, what we call generalized tonic-clonic seizures. So, in that case, there are those who are photosensitive. So, when you're aware of that, then of course, one of the things is to try and avoid places where there'll be flashing light. It's not every flashing light; it's a certain frequency. So, in most cases, the frequency 10 and above. We have it at optimal about 16 to 20. So one way possibly, of course, it's difficult to identify what frequency it is. So that is also another trigger. There are people who've got specific triggers, like reading. They are reading something and they do it for wrong, they have a seizure. So once the person realizes that's a trigger, they read for a time, they have a break. We had one case that was very unique, and that case was that any time that person would go to a shower, if they start having a shower, not bath, so they would have a seizure. So sometimes there are specific triggers, but the commonest triggers are those ones. Some are good in terms of us doing a diagnosis, because if someone has got a photosensitive epilepsy, when you're doing a test, you use the flashing light, you trigger the seizure, and you come up with a diagnosis. There are those who, when they learn, they tire themselves, especially children who are below about 7 years. They have a seizure, what we call absences. So those are some of the triggers. But the main ones is stress, sleep deprivation. So those are the main ones.
Thank you so much for that information. You're going to be taking a short, quick break right here at MEDICAMP. See you in a few.
RBG Engineering Limited is an engineering company that specializes in fabrication and forming projects involving stainless steel, mild steel, and aluminum, and is committed to quality, reliability, and cutting-edge technology. Our services include metal folding, metal cutting, architectural steelwork, on-site services, while ensuring we collaborate with our clients from the initial idea stage, developing the concepts and translating them into computer-aided designs. For more information, contact 0738 123 123 or visit our offices in Kingongo, opposite Shell Petrol Station along the Nyeri-Nyahururu Highway. RBG Engineering Limited, building the future. GTN TV, the home of gifts and talents, presents you with an opportunity to advertise your businesses, death and funeral announcements, wedding and dowry ceremonies, announcements for government meetings and those of other registered groups or organizations, and many more at affordable prices. For more information, you can visit our offices at GCTC Complex, former Othaya Teachers College, or call us on 0742 606 195 or 0721 706 504 or 0768 411 708. You can also send us an email via sales@gtntv.co.ke. GTN TV, the home of gifts and talents.
Welcome back. My name is MAVUTI and this is the MEDICAMP Health Show. Today we are talking about epilepsy. We have discussed quite a lot, but in case you're joining us, you're still going to learn a lot because right now we want to talk about treatment. what does treatment for epilepsy entail, and is it totally curable?
Thank you so much, Mavuti. So epilepsy, we say, it is a condition, and that condition needs to be controlled, if not necessarily completely curable. So the path to seizure freedom, number one, is to make a right diagnosis, because once you make a right diagnosis, you know whether that type of epilepsy requires medication or not, or whether it requires a different way of treating it. So there are certain type of seizures, mainly seen in children, that though the child may continue to have seizures for a time, with or without medication, they will emit. So sometimes it's helpful to offer medication, like what we call epilepsy with central temporal spikes, also called loradic type of seizures. So with that one, you can give medication or not, but at a certain age when the child will outgrow it. So in that case, the doctor will make a decision whether they are going to treat or not, depending on the severity or the frequency of the seizures. However, majority of seizures are controlled by medication. The medications, we call them anti-epileptic drugs. We've got quite a number of them, over between 20 and 30 now in the market. They have continued to broaden. And the choice depends on the type of epilepsy the person has, and whether that medication is going to work for the patient. Because medication, you still have to individualize it and make a decision. So one medication may work good for a person, it doesn't work good for the other person, even though the diagnosis is the same. So with anti-epileptic drugs, the right choice of medication, you will be able to control seizures in about 70 to 80% of the person who have got epilepsy. So that means that those people will have some level of freedom. It may not be a complete freedom. They may have some kind of relapses. They may have a few seizures once here and there, but their life definitely is better. For someone who has been having about 5 or 10 seizures in a month, they start possibly to have 1 in 3 months. However, with this kind of, the patient is never comfortable as long as they have a seizure. So our duty is to make sure that we stop the seizures to the very point where it is possible. So 70 to 80% of them, they have control seizure freedom, but they will continue to take the medication. So that is important. And that choice has to be made by someone who knows more about epilepsy, so that they will be able to give the right medication. And also, in terms of other treatment, apart from that kind of medication, if somebody has got a clear cause, like somebody like Sylvester and others, Sylvester may not necessarily need extra with the medication is working. But there are those people who've had very severe trauma, the brain is very damaged. So in that case, if it is possible to take a part of that part of the brain that is triggering the seizures, it is a good thing, what we call epilepsy surgery. Epilepsy surgery is not common because, of course, if you open the brain and you start cutting it, the chances are that you are likely to end up with some side effects to that part of the brain. If there is a part of the brain that is involved in memory, the person may lose the faculty of memory, whether it is partial or whether it is complete. And of course, given the choice, you'd possibly do better with seizures rather than complete loss of memory. So in that case, epilepsy surgery is a way, but it's only for a few people. And if it has to happen, the people who are involved, you don't just make a decision one time. You have a team that works with you, what we call a multidisciplinary team, and you have the person who suffers from epilepsy, if they are of age, you have the relatives, you go through it, you discuss, and you see whether that is an option. So epilepsy surgery is an option, but it's for very, very few people. Then we have other forms of treatment. You've got diet like what we call ketogenic diet that is helpful. It doesn't have any side effects. It's only that the diet is not very present. You may not enjoy it, but it helps. But it helps for those seizures that cannot be controlled by those initial anti-epileptic medication. We also have another treatment. We stimulate what we call a vagus nerve. So vagus nerve stimulation, it is another option. However, it is not a common way of treatment in this country, but it still helps. So the first thing, you deal with medication, anti-epileptic medication, but if the seizures are not controlled, or the person is feeling they are very uncomfortable with whatever is happening, you've got to try all the other options that are there. There is also this cannabis, we call the cannabidiol. It is a choice. I think is not legalized in this country. It is legalized in few countries that can be used, but it is also very rare. Possibly, you in a country like this, you possibly may need to see only to give about five persons. So it is not really something that should be a worry to us. But the best treatment definitely is use of anti-epileptic medication. However, that treatment, if it is not working, and possibly the person has got the maximum or the optimal use of that medication, it is important for the person to go back to the clinician and try to work together and see whether the diagnosis of epilepsy was accurate or not. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And one thing is that epilepsy is characterized by seizures. Yeah. And like you're saying, they might not go away forever, but with medication, they could be reduced up to 80%. So what first aid do we give these people, since they are part of us, they are part of the society, they're having seizures, what first aid do we give them?
Okay. Okay, so we are talking about someone who is having what we call epilepsy ourselves as a society. And what we call epilepsy as a society, number one, is when we see somebody stiffening, they fall to the ground, and they start to have jerking movement. So such a person, the first thing, as I said before, is to make sure that they are safe. So you make sure you pull the furnitures away from the person. And once you've done that, if they're in an unsafe place, like in a load, you make sure you pull them to the side. So once you know they are safe there, then you put your head, if you don't have a pillow or a cushion, you put your head below their head so that they don't hit the ground with their head. So, and you allow them to go on with the seizure they're having. You should never try to stop a seizure when it's happening, because that problem is coming from the brain. It is not the muscles that are pushing or jerking. So you should not restrain the patient. So all what you need to do is to be there with the patient, encourage them, talk to them, so that you assure them that you're with them. And of course, the seizure is not going to take a long time in most cases, and wait for the seizure to end. The other thing that you should never do when the patient is there, or the person who's got a seizure is with you, when they're having that seizure, never put anything in their mouth. Never use a spoon, because a spoon is likely to cause injury to the dental femora. And even though the person may possibly bite their tongue, it's easier to deal with a bitten tongue than a fractured teeth. So never put anything in their mouth. Let them just go on with the seizure. And once that is done, you are with them all the time. Put them in a recovery position. That is important, so that they don't choke. So you just put them you put the head on the side, so that if there's saliva coming from the mouth, it just droops. Yeah. So that should be the thing. And it is important, as the person has got the seizure, that you note the duration the seizure has taken. So make sure, if it is 2 minutes, you're able to document it as 2 minutes, or to tell the person, who either a relative, that the seizure was for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Because if it progresses to 5 minutes, it has got a danger. Therefore, it is important. If it is a prolonged seizure, the person, 5 minutes plus, the person has got to be taken to the hospital, even though they possibly still have a diagnosis of epilepsy. If the person has a diagnosis of epilepsy and they have a seizure that is typical of what they have, is for about a minute or 30 seconds. You don't have to do anything after that. Reassure them, and once they're ready to go back to their life, they go back to their life. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And I don't know, is it possible that we have a treatment gap, especially in our country? And maybe Sylvester, have you struggled to find services regarding your condition? Have you struggled to find medication? The experts, do you have to travel to a certain location for you to get assisted?
With regards to access to medication, the medication at first, while I was starting up to getting medication, it was actually quite expensive because it wasn't that common to get it. Like it's not an over-the-counter medication actually. So we needed it to be prescribed by somebody who was specialized in the field. So getting somebody who was specialized in the field needed questioning at the time. But as time has progressed, there are more specialists in the field. And it has helped in accessibility of medication. The only issue with the medication is the cost of medication. That's whatever is kind of limiting access of this medication. Because at one point you might have the finances to purchase medication, maybe to take you for a month or maybe two or 3 weeks. And then at a certain point you find yourself you don't have enough to get the medication you need. So as a person who has lived with the condition, you will find yourself having a timetable or a scheduled timetable showing at this particular date I need to restock my medication. Because it has to be, like in my case, I have to make sure 1 week before the medication is over, I need to restock the medication. So it's whereby you have to now look for finances to purchase the medication and restock it.
That is quite a struggle and maybe that tiring. As we move forward, we also have people, as much as the treatment might be challenging to get, they get a diagnosis, or if they don't, they have a seizure, and they assume it's a curse, it's witchcraft, or such things, a lot of myths and misconceptions, and maybe they prefer to be prayed for and other options, and these people never get access to treatment. What do you think is causing that, and what can we do?
I think the whole mystery of epilepsy to the community is really a big issue. Number one, because there is minimal information in the community. This is very different from those people who are living in different countries in the West, where there is full knowledge, and that knowledge is everywhere. It's common knowledge that epilepsy is quite a prevalent condition, and therefore it is dealt with by the community. They see it like any other medical condition. It is like diabetes. It is like somebody who is having high blood pressure. Because it is a condition of the body. It is not a condition of the mind. It is a condition of the body. So epilepsy, it is to do with the brain as a mass, not the mind. So in that case, when people say this is somebody has been bewitched, it is because of ignorance. It is never a bewitching. It is a medical condition where our electrical signal that we have in the brain, they go haywire. Just like you may have a syncope, a collapse, because there is arrhythmia in your heart rhythm. So that is the same. Or you may have low blood pressure, then you collapse. It is the same. So that stigma should go. And of course, with this generation and this day and age, at least the stigma is dying. I remember during our young years, it was very difficult. We had a relative who had epilepsy as a young boy, and of course, we would always run away from him. That was it. But it's ignorance. But let us not live in that ignorance, because epilepsy is like any other condition. So it is important for us to accept it, and also realize, of course, when Mavuti, when you get time, it will be good to look at other different types of seizures that people don't think they are seizures or it's epilepsy. It is important, and these ones can be picked up in schools, some of them. So the kind of big seizure that we talk about only constitute about 20%. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Sylvester, you talked to us about how you would isolate yourself at some point in your life, maybe due to stigma, and also feeling like you are discriminated by people because maybe they don't have the information, they are not aware that this is a condition like Dr. is explaining it to be. So what is your call to the masses, to the government, to the healthcare system to make you feel all, to participate in you accepting yourself and feeling like you belong to this society and you don't need to hide with your condition and you don't need to isolate yourself?
So what I can advise is if you have epilepsy, first be comfortable with yourself. Know what you have, understand it, and then from there you can have people whom you trust and explain it to them and tell them what can be done in case it happens around them, and create a form of a comfort zone whereby you can have them understand everything that happens around you, what to avoid, as the doctor stated. From there, it's whereby when it comes to the government per se, I think the thing that I would personally recommend is the creation maybe of NGOs that pinpoint on with regards to epilepsy. That way they can create or highlight in the essence of availability of certain medications, or have people who have the condition meet up and try to discuss and find a way to explain to the government on what they can do to help in terms of accessibility of certain things, and create a form of a way of spreading information and letting people understand that it's not what they actually assume it is. These are the facts about the disease or the condition that one has. So it's not that, I wouldn't say it's such a big challenge, but I think that's the direction we should actually go. Because for other diseases and conditions, it has worked, and I believe it can work also for epilepsy.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I'm gathering is that you have accepted the condition, you are comfortable with it, but a lot of people out there are not very aware, and so that tends to create the problem.
Yes.
Not that the people with epilepsy have a problem accepting or knowing what they're going through. It is us, the society, the masses, that lack this information. And like Dr. said, it is a condition of brain, as in the mass, not the mind. So it is not a matter of witchcraft, but a curse. It is a condition that can be treated. It has been a wonderful episode. We've learned quite a lot. That is going to be it today for MEDICAMP. I'll just give Dr. one moment to maybe pat our viewers goodbye as you tell them where can they find you if they need any treatment.
Thank you so much, viewers, for listening to us. It's been such a great time to discuss about epilepsy. So it is something that we need to take forward. That is important, and especially in terms of awareness. I hope that you'll be able to, that will happen. Currently, I'm doing diagnosis in terms of epilepsy. I'm located in Othaya. That is along Kiriaini Othaya Road. Just before you get to town, there is a big hotel called Silverbrook. I'm right opposite there, and the place where I do diagnosis of epilepsy and give information about epilepsy is right on the other side. It's called Othaya Neurophysiology Services. Thank you very much. And my contact is 0704 550 440. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Sylvester, maybe someone you want to give a shout out to as we because you don't need to share your contact.
So for the shout out that I would like to give is to my family, my relatives, and their friends who have made in term while still having what I have. Because if it wasn't for some of them, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I do appreciate the time they took to understand me for being me, and the time they took to actually not judge me just because of what I have. And for that, I do really appreciate them.
Yeah. Beautiful. So that is it. My name is MUMBI MAVUTI. This has been the MEDICAMP Health Show. See you on next Tuesday, right here at GTN TV, the home of gifts and talents. And remember that your health is your wealth, and also there isn't a magic bullet for health. You have to live healthy to be healthy. Keep it GTN TV.